Designed for cybersecurity from the start. An excellent, excellent article in MIT Sloan Management Review. We're going to be breaking it down, talking about it. This is a good one. Very good article. Let's get to it. All right. There seldomly comes, or whatever the phrase is, a chance where an article like this comes out, and it's really just it's too good. I had to get the highlighter out. I still like to read things in physical form. Mainly, I try, guys. I read a lot. I tried to get Kindle and all that stuff, and I can't do it. I can't. Whereas if I read something in a book, I will think about where that book is on my bookcase, and I'll be able to recall that information. On as much as I like the Kindle for portability, it saves me from having read Neil Stephenson. He's got some big books. I just can't. I don't know. Every time I try it, I can't do it. So I still get a lot of print media, and it has its benefits when you can highlight things. But that being aside, I want to talk about this article from MIT Sloan Management Review. This is the winter 2020 edition. In here, there's an article on designing cybersecurity from the start in the technology risks section. And it's basically why we still suck at cybersecurity, designing products. And so this is actually, in here they do some research with 3 global companies. They say well-known companies, and they basically do research to figure out why we still cannot do cybersecurity right, and why there's still breaches, and why is this a continuing problem. And it had some insights. The conclusion is what, if you've been following me, you probably know the conclusion, but the insights I thought were particularly good. So this is their bottom line up front bluff, is that cybersecurity is rarely considered among criteria in the early design phase. Okay, so I can tell you this is, I think even on my website, I say that I really like to get involved in the design phase. I'll tell you more about that later. But this is the issue with products, is that if you don't consider security early enough, you've missed the boat. I have had some conversations with people who've, unfortunately because of the hardware they picked on electronics design, it's just, you're starting with an unsecure setting. So you have to start very early. Okay. And so here it goes. It says that if the problem cannot be fixed, a design may have to be scrapped entirely. And I've seen that with products, right? So if you're trying to meet some security criteria and you pick the wrong microcontroller in the beginning, you may have to respin the whole thing. It's very, very costly to not consider cybersecurity, especially for electronic products. Widgets of things very, very early on, where security is fundamental in the actual component selection. Okay, so then they go on. If your executive team is not talking regularly about how to build secure digital offerings, you are not testing your processes often, most likely your product will have hidden vulnerabilities. And so this is consistently seen. Basically, it's not, I think people aren't asking when they're going to be hacked. If they're going to be hacked, it's when, right? So this is going to happen. I like to start thinking of cybersecurity now as just emergency preparedness. Like if you live I live in Colorado, okay, and Colorado wildfires are more of a thing. It's not. There's this Marshall fire that happened about a month ago in Boulder County. Now it's in a suburb area. These things are going to happen, right? Cybersecurity is going to, there's going to be an event that happens to you, right? I think the right way to think about this is an emergency preparedness. That, hey, this is going to happen. What do I do? How do I respond? It's no longer like prevent it from happening. It's not. You're not going to prevent it. There's going to be a hack. There's going to be an attack. There's going to be a breach. How you can do some prevention. You should do prevention, but then you also have to think about the mitigation and the response. It's just like with wildfires, right? There's lots of things you can do to prevent a wildfire, but when it happens, you have to respond, and then you have to think about the aftermath. So you have that, and this is the discussion that I don't see a lot of companies have on thinking about cybersecurity this way. Okay, so the call to action here is that company leaders must find a way to change designers' attitudes about building in security from the initial design. I talk with a lot of engineers, guys, And it's a lot of the electrical engineers that have issues with cybersecurity, right? Because they don't, to be frank, they don't know this stuff. They don't understand it, and they think it's someone else's problem. If if it's even a problem at all. I mean, I've had to convince people. There was one, I remember one of my first conversations where I was trying to tell them, trying to talk about the importance of cybersecurity. Very, very accomplished EE, newest stuff in this domain. But he was like, Josh, I use ringel.c. That's all I need. Ringel.c, Josh. I've been using encryption. Why are you on my case? Okay. So then it goes on to say they've been working with 3 large companies, and why they wanted to get to the bottom of why cybersecurity is rarely baked into new digital offerings. So this is I can't, guys, this is 2022, winter 22, this is, we're still talking about this, right? So why is this still an issue? Okay, here is their conclusions. Okay, so cybersecurity gets no respect until it's too late. Guys, this is like, again, that's why I really like this emergency preparedness metaphor, right? Like these disasters. I can't remember. There's a book. I think it was Ray Dalio's. Ray Dalio's latest book, not Principles, but the one after that. That these kind of like once in these like black sheep events aren't really black sheep. Like they're gray rhinos. That was the phrase. Gray rhinos. So they are things that you could be. They're not that uncommon. Right. And so cybersecurity, these events everyone thinks it's a black sheep, but it's a gray rhino. Okay. I think I did a video about that before. But here's the reasons why it doesn't get respect. So first, cybersecurity doesn't directly contribute to revenue. This is the perceived thing, right? So I'm making this product. Cybersecurity is it's not really like a secure thing. It's not for the government or whatever. It's not like a secure messenger. So what's the revenue proposition? What's the value proposition? Right. And so they say that customers, or maybe think of this as like cars on a tire. It's just like, I'd rather have the big screen touch panel, right? The cybersecurity thing. The second reason that doesn't get respect is that cybersecurity, as it's done today, can potentially delay time to market, right? So in trying to make the design, right, and to evaluate cybersecurity, which I think is an engineering, it's an engineering discipline, right? So you have to do analysis, you have to do some work there. There are some things you have to look at the results and everything. Yes, that's as it's done today, it's saying, hey, it's going to add time, right? So sometimes product managers don't want to do it because they want to be first to market, and then they'll just get secure later, okay? And right, so there's lots of products where this has happened, so that. The first anytime I'm trying to attack a product, right? If you look at the first generation, it's usually the insecure version. And then because of the legacy things that had to go forward, there's usually security mistakes that they have to now keep for backwards compatibility. This is how attackers learn to basically attack products, is by usually that first version was rushed to market, and there's latent flaws in there, and then they take advantage in later ones. So finally, this is the third reason why cybersecurity gets no respect. Designers and managers typically underestimate how severe the consequences of cybersecurity vulnerabilities can be. So, here's a line which I've heard many times, guys. I promise I had no involvement with this article, but I've heard this. Okay, so one manager is justified giving security considerations a lower priority by saying that the company's product was not connected to anything significant in customer systems, so a breach was not going to do that much damage. So this is the issue that I see all the time, right? So the designers, they make the product, guys, it's not going to be connected to the internet, nothing to worry about. And then, 20 years later, someone goes, "Guy, look, I can make this, Ethernet to serial adapter. Let me just put this on this programmable logic controller. Amazing. Now I have my power plant on the internet," right? So this is, there's another phrase I heard with cybersecurity is basically failure of imagination, right? So, right there, I get there's design principles that you have to kind of eventually have to stop at, but failing to imagine the worst possible situation is one of the things that I consistently see that the original team's product team doesn't want to consider, right? Because and I get it, right? As a product designer, you're trying to make it work. There's so much energy going into making it work and making it work reliably that that I get it. You don't want to think about someone maliciously trying to abuse the thing that you're trying to help them work. But that's exactly what a cybersecurity engineer should be doing, is they should be imagining what is the worst case scenario. And I can tell you how many times I annoy my family, and sometimes I act like a Debbie Downer when people suggest something, some idea or something, and then it's like the immediate first thing that pops in my head is some sort of like worst case outcome. But this is what the security engineers should be doing. And then it's a matter of risk mitigation. So just because that's the worst case, that may be an unlikely case, but these are the things that security engineers think about and product engineers don't want to think about in my experience. Okay. So then it says, hey, while managers debate the merits of spending resources and time on cybersecurity, customer attitudes towards cybersecurity for digital offerings are changing, right? So even though the product designers are like, yeah, who cares about security? The person who has a breach, the person whose cyber and security insurance won't pay them anymore because of bad cybersecurity practice, those are the people getting stuck. Okay, so it's the customers of these products that are really, and then this is where, when we have a whole Eastern Seaboard getting down, this is no longer a meh, no one should care about this thing. I mean, this is affecting people's lives. And the article's basically saying, hey, we got to start fixing this problem at the beginning, which I appreciate for greenfield situations. We have a lot of things already deployed, but hey, going forward, we can get better. Okay. So how do these existing companies then handle these changes now, right? So there was 3 ways. One was bolting on security fixes. And this is basically the way that doesn't work. So this is, you design the product, you build the product, and you go, I should do something about security. Let me add it on the end. Too late, right? This is where it won't work. Security has to be fundamental to the architecture, to the design. This is why this doesn't work. And this, honestly, guys, is why while I do penetration tests and audits, I actually much prefer working with the design teams up front. I mean, I'll do the penetration test for you, but the issue is if I find something, if I find something in the hardware, I've rarely seen people fix it. If I find something in software, in code, okay, they fix it, this thing. But there's a hardware issue. It's like, well, actually, Josh, what we did is we scheduled the hardware penetration test to be basically the go, no go before we launched. So I'm not going to tell you, we're not going to launch it, but it's launching after your penetration test. And so, sometimes there's hardware bugs, sometimes there's software bugs. But as the client that I'm giving this report to, you're giving yourself no opportunity to even fix it by having the penetration test done there. I think I'm unique in one of the services that I offer is that I try to work with design teams up front in like a retainer-based model and a consultation model. Basically, I kind of talk to you and review documents as they come in the design phase, right? So most companies don't want to do this because they just want to do the penetration test and then go on. I actually like doing the product design stuff. The benefit of that is that in a 1-hour conversation, I saved you like tens of thousands of dollars on a penetration test, possibly even more of respinning a hardware and everything just by talking to me for 1 hour. Okay. So these are things that it's just like to use the Navy example, it's like a ship, big ship. You turn that rudder, it takes a long time for that thing to come around, right? So by the time if you're trying to if you're about to collide into something, okay, you get a big ship, too late. You had to make that rudder choice way back there. And that's where talking to me for an hour will save you lots and lots of time. Okay. So bolting on security fixes, that's one of the ways people do it. It doesn't work too well. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, basically and I will pick on the security industry a little bit, is that the security industry, the penetration test is like such a known quantity here, that, organizations are kind of like, oh, I just need to get the penetration test at the end. And that's very frustrating for, whatever, like I'll do it and I will find issues and you'll have issues to fix, but it's just, For me as an auditor, it's very frustrating to find an issue and then know that it's not going to be fixed because it basically the product is, it would be requiring revamping the product, and it's like I would have saved everyone a bunch of time if you just had, and it would have been much cheaper for you too if we just talked to me at the beginning. Okay, so the second way that companies try to fix this is incorporating secure development lifecycle processes. And so there's the SDLC and all these, people that do all this kind of this kind of thing. And basically it's incorporating gates into your design process. So this is better, right? So you have like a design review and then you check it and then, that's better, but it's still, you're shifting the pain from the end of the product to kind of either middle of the product or throughout the product stage. The problem is you still have these gates. If cybersecurity is an issue there, it'll still kind of get rolled over to meet other product timelines. So it's better. You're looking at it more, but it's still not the best solution. The other one, the last thing that they said people did is they embedded security consultants. This, I think they meant more of internal consultants because they talked about having there's like one security person on your team and then he was shared among different product teams. So that worked out really well with the downside of that security engineer may not be a product design engineer. So they may not have the experience. And if they're like, you only have one for a company, it's typically like shared around. So people were complaining in here that that person was never available. So this is basically what I do as a contract basis. Generally I end up working with smaller teams. The larger teams, kind of have someone like this, I guess, although that person seems busy, just saying, there's always me. But yeah, so I've also done product design too. So that is a difference. That is one of the differences with me versus just being a regular security engineer. But I just thought that was an interesting thing. So what's the solution to this? Design with cybersecurity baked in. Okay. And so they're advocating that cybersecurity becomes one of the basic design criteria. Okay. So let's see. Executive and managers told us that they increasingly want to see cybersecurity built in from the product in the beginning, which would make sense. And then the companies that do this differently have a real, the quote is a real cybersecurity mentality. I will link in this paper that was by NIST that talked about how different companies who build cryptographic products thought about cybersecurity, and it's a much different mindset. So it is very much a culture thing to build cybersecurity in than just to kind of like think about it as an afterthought. So here are 3 ways they suggested, and some of these will have a different. I guess they got 4, but the first one of how to change this behavior is tie performance appraisals to cybersecurity. So this one I think is a little bit interesting, but the idea is, hey, employees are being promoted based on getting the product out to market, all this stuff, but there's no performance evaluation based on cybersecurity. And so that's one of their methods to change this is, hey, we're going to promote people based on their commitment to cybersecurity. That, I think, if you promote people on getting like time to market or beating time to market at all things, I can see why cybersecurity is where it is now. It's completely fallen off the side. I also, for companies who I have worked with that do care about cybersecurity, there is a definitely balance of like getting the product out the door, knowing if the product is going to be a product market fit, and then also trying to make it secure. So I think in my own career, I've tried to learn to balance this a little bit better. But I used to be more of a security hardened person, and then I've kind of become more of a realist, I think. But anyway, this is kind of an interesting one. Number 2, make heroes out of designers who encourage and positive cybersecurity behaviors. This one's a little fluffy. I mean, this was their recommendation. I'm going to eye roll at this one. If someone does a good job, we'll give them a cybersecurity champion badge that employee can add to their email signature. Guys, I'm pretty sure anyone can add whatever they want to their email signature right now. This one feels like you phoned this one in. I really like this article. The cybersecurity badge on your email feels like a little phone in, guys. Okay, that's my only complaint about that article. Okay, number 3, train designers on security in addition to using experts as safety nets. This I think is the best thing. So obviously, I offer training at Advanced Security. Advanced Security, we do a bunch of hardware security training. But this one, from the clients we have that I do training, this is the one that I can tell you that the top tier companies are doing. And they are getting people who are doing normal product design, whether it's electrical, mainly it's electrical and software, firmware, and they're getting them cybersecurity training. Okay. And then they, as the designer, they now have at least, they're not an expert necessarily in cybersecurity or hacking or hardware hacking, but they now know what the attacks are, right? And so it's in the back of the mind while they're designing it. And I will say this is probably one of the biggest areas I see where, especially among older electrical engineers who grew up where they didn't really have to think about any of this because it was not connected or whatever. They just really are just not, as much as engineers like to learn things, I think a lot of engineers also don't like to learn. They don't like to have the Zen mind, beginner mind, where they don't want to be seen. I think for some people this is an issue where they don't want to go back to ground zero and then learn a whole new discipline. And to be fair, security engineering is a completely new discipline. If you are an electrical engineer and you try, RF is like its own specialty, right? Just like security engineering is its own specialty. But what this article is trying to emphasize is that it's not good enough. You just outsource it. The product designer has to have some awareness of what they're doing. Just like an electrical engineer may have some idea, hey, if I put this really long trace on this board, it could start to have some sort of RF-like properties, i.e. act like antenna, right? So that person's not an RF engineer, but they know enough about RF to know they have to stay within these bounds. And that, I think, is what this article is calling for. Hey, right now, electrical and firmware engineers don't even know enough about security to know what the bounds are. And I think that's mainly the issue. Okay. And then the last one here is deliver strong, frequent messages to increase awareness of security needs. This one, the problem is this comes out, there's a cybersecurity month or whatever, then there's a bunch of vendors spamming you on LinkedIn. So I think you have to be careful about how that happens. MIT Sloan Management Review knocked it out of the park. I really like this article. I can't tell you I guess the biggest thing I'll just leave you with is that, while yes, I do penetration testing. Yes, I will do audits. I've done research and all this stuff. I can't tell you how much cheaper it is to do that. I've worked with clients on a retainer where on an hour phone call, I will have saved hours and hours on an audit, hours and hours of redesign by just essentially talking to me up front. And then while I would wish anyone here were to talk to me about their cybersecurity product, that could be your internal security person, or it could be someone who is knowledgeable cybersecurity in your own organization. But that is really where that has to happen. The designers need to have. I think there's a lot of onus on the designers that right now it just isn't there. This one is focused on this article is focused on a kind of a organization management perspective. I'd be interested, because I know there's a lot of designers and electrical engineers that watch this. If you stayed with it to the end, I'd be interested in saying what you think your barriers are to learning security. Because I imagine a lot of you want to know enough to not make these design mistakes. Because I think that's probably usually most good designers are like that. But what are the barriers you have to learning it? Is it too complex? Do you not know where to get started? All of the above. Anyway. Super interesting article. Thanks for sticking around. And these websites, I have these videos on cryptotronics.com, on Vimeo. People were encouraging me to go on YouTube. I may or may not put them there. But an advanced security training, you can, if you want any of the hardware security training that we talked about here, that's where you can go to check that out. Okay, thanks.